land-breaking developments are sending shockwaves across the globe. In a move that has stunned governments, analysts, and media alike, Ukraine has reportedly carried out a highly precise strike on what is believed to be President Vladimir Putin's private residence, a location long viewed as completely untouchable. Russia's reaction has been furious, with officials issuing dire warnings of devastating retaliation, while NATO and the wider international community rush to assess the consequences. This single action has the potential to reshape the trajectory of the war, and what follows could leave the world reeling. What you are about to hear may fundamentally alter how this conflict is understood. That is the reality the world woke up to as reports began emerging that Ukrainian forces had launched a targeted operation against the personal residence of Russia's president. Military experts are calling it an extraordinary and unprecedented maneuver, one that shattered long-held assumptions about the limits of Ukraine's reach. The target was not a battlefield, nor a routine military facility, but a location representing the very core of Russian power and authority. News of the strike rippled rapidly through Russia, Europe, and beyond, igniting intense speculation, fear, and urgent discussions among global leaders and intelligence agencies. For years, Putin's private residence has stood as far more than a living space. It has symbolized control, dominance, and absolute security, protected by layers of surveillance, elite guards, and advanced defensive systems designed to make any attack virtually impossible. The notion that Ukrainian forces could reach such a site was, until now, considered unimaginable. Yet overnight, Ukrainian intelligence and military planners demonstrated that even the most heavily guarded locations may be vulnerable when meticulous planning, strategic insight, and precision Ambient Ukrainian officials are describing the operation as a carefully executed surgical strike, designed with strict attention to minimizing collateral damage while delivering a powerful political and psychological message. Unlike widespread assaults aimed at infrastructure or military bases, this action focused directly on a symbol of leadership and power. Ukrainian leaders have consistently stated that their fight is not only about defending territory, but also about dismantling the perception of Russian invincibility. According to them, this strike delivered that message with unmistakable force. Bond experts worldwide are describing the move as a calculated and daring signal. Analysts emphasize that its importance extends far beyond immediate tactical outcomes. This was a psychological operation intended to erode confidence within the Russian leadership and demonstrate that no figure, regardless of protection or status, is completely beyond reach. The ability to locate, monitor, and strike such a fortified site highlights the sophistication, intelligence capabilities, and strategic evolution of Ukraine's military forces. Moscow's response was immediate and uncompromising. Within hours of reports confirming the strike, emergency meetings were convened inside the Kremlin. Russian officials described the attack as a direct assault on national leadership and sovereignty. State-controlled media shifted into non-stop coverage, portraying Ukraine as a reckless and dangerous aggressor. The message was clear and repeated across broadcasts. Any further attempt to strike Russian leadership would trigger devastating retaliation. And for the Kremlin, this was far more than a security failure. It was a blow to prestige, authority, and the carefully constructed image of absolute control. In a system where leadership is projected as untouchable and invulnerable, the very idea that such a location could be targeted sent visible shock through Russia's political and security establishment. Reports suggest that senior aides and top security officials spent the night reviewing protection protocols and raising alert levels at all key presidential sites. And while the full extent of the physical damage is still being assessed, multiple sources indicate that the residents sustained significant structural harm. Windows were shattered, sections of the building were damaged, and parts of the security infrastructure were disrupted. At this stage, there has been no confirmed information regarding injuries to President Putin or his close associates. This has led analysts to believe that the operation was designed less to cause casualties and more to deliver a calculated strategic and psychological message. The most powerful impact of the strike was not physical but psychological. Inside the Kremlin, a new sense of vulnerability has taken hold. The realization that even the most heavily protected locations can be reached has forced officials to confront uncomfortable questions about security gaps and future risks. Emergency assessments are reportedly underway to determine how such an operation was possible and whether other critical sites may also be exposed. Beyond Russia's borders, the reaction has been swift and intense. Governments across Europe, the United States, and Asia are closely monitoring developments, with intelligence agencies analyzing the strike to understand Ukraine's evolving capabilities and to anticipate Moscow's next move. Experts warn that this event may redefine the conflict itself, signaling that Ukraine is no longer limiting its actions to defensive operations, but is now capable of challenging Russian power at its very core. For Ukraine, the strike carried a powerful message far beyond the immediate battlefield. Military analysts describe the operation as a deliberate psychological maneuver, intended to undermine Russian confidence and expose the myth of complete invulnerability surrounding its leadership. By successfully targeting a site so deeply protected, Ukrainian forces demonstrated a level of intelligence gathering, coordination, and technological capability that few believed possible under current conditions. According to Ukrainian officials and intelligence sources, the operation was planned over an extended period of time. Every detail was reportedly analyzed, from security routines and defensive systems to structural layouts and potential vulnerabilities. The goal was precision, not chaos. Unlike large-scale bombardments aimed at infrastructure or troop concentrations, this mission focused on accuracy and restraint, reinforcing Ukraine's narrative that its military actions are calculated and controlled. That the strike is also being viewed as a significant morale booster within Ukraine. Across the country, citizens and supporters expressed a surge of pride and confidence, seeing the operation as proof that Ukrainian forces can strike high-value targets while minimizing collateral damage. Social media platforms quickly filled with messages of support, praise, and defiance, reflecting a broader sense of resilience and determination after years of conflict. At the same time, the operation sent a clear signal to international audiences. It showed allies and observers that Ukraine is not only capable of defending its territory, but also able to conduct complex, high-impact operations deep inside Russian-controlled space. Analysts suggest that this could influence future military aid, intelligence sharing, and strategic partnerships as Ukraine continues to demonstrate operational sophistication and resolve. For Russia, however, the implications are deeply unsettling. The attack challenges long-standing assumptions about the safety of leadership and the effectiveness of internal security systems. It forces a reassessment of defensive priorities and raises concerns about how far Ukraine's reach may actually extend. The psychological impact on decision-makers, security services, and even the general public could prove just as damaging as any physical destruction. Experts warn that such developments increase the risk of escalation. When symbols of power are directly targeted, emotions and perceptions play a larger role in decision-making. A heightened sense of threat can lead to rapid and sometimes miscalculated responses. As both sides adjust their strategies, the conflict enters a more volatile and unpredictable phase where actions are designed not only to win territory, but to shape fear, confidence, and global perception. The operation itself reportedly unfolded under the cover of darkness, showcasing a level of coordination and precision rarely seen in modern conflict. Intelligence reports and eyewitness accounts suggest that Ukrainian forces executed the strike swiftly and with remarkable accuracy. Missiles were seen cutting through the night sky in a carefully synchronized attack, striking the residents with pinpoint precision. This was not a spontaneous act, but the result of weeks, possibly months, of detailed planning and surveillance. The target was no ordinary location. President Vladimir Putin's private residence has long been regarded as one of the most heavily fortified sites in Russia. Protected by advanced air defense systems, constant surveillance, and elite security personnel, it was widely believed to be beyond the reach of any direct attack. By successfully striking such a location, Ukraine demonstrated not only its firepower, but also its ability to penetrate complex defensive networks and exploit critical weaknesses. Initial assessments indicate that the strike caused substantial structural damage. Walls were impacted, windows destroyed, and elements of the surrounding security infrastructure were disrupted. Despite the scale of the damage, there have been no confirmed reports of casualties among Putin's family or senior officials. This has reinforced the belief that the mission was intentionally limited in scope, designed to send a message rather than inflict mass harm. Inside the Kremlin, the response was one of urgency and alarm. Security teams were reportedly thrown into emergency mode, conducting immediate reviews of all presidential facilities across the country. Vulnerabilities are being reassessed, contingency plans updated, and additional protective measures put in place. The strike has forced Russian leadership to confront a reality that was once unthinkable. Even the most secure locations may no longer be truly safe. Beyond its immediate impact, analysts say the operation represents a major shift in how the war is being fought. Ukraine is no longer confined to traditional military targets or frontline engagements. Instead, it is signaling a willingness and ability to conduct strategic, high-impact operations aimed directly at symbols of power. This evolution in strategy introduces a new and dangerous dimension to the conflict, one where psychological pressure and symbolic victories are as important as territorial gains. Russia's official reaction escalated rapidly, marked by unusually aggressive language and stark warnings. In hours of the strike, government spokespeople and state media issued statements declaring that any further attacks on Russian leadership or territory would be met with extreme and overwhelming force. Terms such as total destruction, unforgivable consequences, and severe retaliation dominated headlines, creating an atmosphere of urgency and fear both inside Russia and beyond its borders. Then military analysts point out that this rhetoric serves multiple purposes. On the surface, it is a direct threat aimed at deterring Ukraine from attempting similar operations in the future. At the same time, it is intended to reassure the Russian public and political elite that the government remains in control and capable of responding decisively. However, experts caution that such language often reflects a delicate balance between real military capability and the need to project strength after a serious blow to prestige. Reports indicate that Russia has raised its military readiness level in response to the strike. Advanced air defense systems have reportedly been placed on maximum alert around critical sites, including government buildings, military bases, and key infrastructure. Troops near the Ukrainian border are said to be increasing patrols, conducting rapid response drills, and coordinating closely with missile defense units in anticipation of further developments. Despite the show of force, specialists warn of the risks inherent in such heightened tension. The realization that even heavily guarded locations are vulnerable may have a destabilizing effect on public confidence within Russia. If citizens begin to question the state's ability to protect its own leadership, the psychological impact could extend far beyond the immediate security concerns, potentially influencing morale, internal stability, political. From Ukraine's perspective, the reaction from Moscow underscores the success of the operation on a strategic level. The strike forced a powerful response, shifted global attention, and exposed cracks in the perception of absolute security surrounding Russian leadership. While the threats are serious, analysts suggest they also reveal the depth of the shock caused by the operation. The conflict is now entering a phase where symbolism, perception, and psychological pressure are playing an increasingly central role alongside conventional military force. The global response to the reported strike has been rapid, measured, and filled with concern. Governments across NATO and the broader international community are closely observing developments, recognizing that this incident represents a significant escalation within an already unstable conflict. Diplomatic channels are said to be highly active as world leaders and senior officials work to prevent further deterioration that could threaten regional stability and wider international security. In Kyiv, Ukrainian authorities have presented the operation as a defensive and strategic measure. Officials emphasize that Ukraine continues to respond to sustained Russian aggression while asserting its right to protect national sovereignty. According to statements from Ukrainian leadership, the action was deliberately limited and carefully controlled, intended to demonstrate capability and resolve rather than cause widespread harm. The messaging has been structured to project strength while underscoring restraint and responsibility. Public reaction within Ukraine has been largely supportive. Social media platforms quickly reflected strong approval, with many users praising the precision, coordination, and symbolism of the operation. For a significant portion of the population, the event has come to represent resilience and determination, reinforcing the belief that Ukraine is not only enduring the conflict, but actively influencing its direction. Analysts note that such moments can play an important role in sustaining morale and national unity during prolonged periods of war. Despite this, experts continue to warn that the overall situation remains highly fragile. Strong rhetoric from Moscow, combined with Ukraine's demonstrated operational reach, increases the risk of misunderstanding or miscalculation. Actions intended as signals or deterrents may be interpreted differently by opposing sides, raising the possibility of rapid escalation. Military and political leaders are now operating in an environment where decisions carry amplified risks and consequences. In broader terms, the reported strike on President Putin's private residence represents a potentially pivotal moment in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. It highlights a shift toward a form of confrontation shaped not only by territorial control, but also by psychological impact, symbolism, and strategic communication. Long-held assumptions about security and invulnerability have been challenged, and the boundaries of the conflict appear to be evolving. The days ahead will be crucial in determining whether this episode leads toward renewed restraint or ushers in a more dangerous and unpredictable phase of the war.